Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I have not taken you through our draft results and our draft picks, so we're going to do that now. I had actually made a video about this a while ago, but I had made so many just talking videos with no gameplay that I decided to push it back. If I put it right up in the middle, up top, we can move it around as necessary, but I want to be able to see the ratings and stuff of these players. So we'll do that. Okay. So I just want to say there was not a lot of talent in this draft class. There was barely anybody with a potential. There were no generational players. There was no really even potential superstars in this class. There was like maybe a handful of guys, okay? And especially no position player talent. So luckily we did not miss on our first round pick, Matt Ray. 52 overall, so he's a little bit, longer term prospect. Guy that'll probably be ready 23-ish probably. When he's 23 years old, I'd bet. Maybe 22. Here he is, though. Matt Ray. Okay, so face cam's not in the way. Throws right. He's out of Kentucky. All right. So the big thing about Ray that I liked the hits per 9. It's already up to 62. Like, if his stamina goes up into the 80s, his hits per 9 is going to be up in the 80s. He's going to be a real problem. Going to be a guy that's hard to square up. Probably a pitch to contact guy, really. The control's not bad. Not a lot of velo, right? He's got a running fastball. It comes in at 89. Change up at 84, slider at 84, and a curveball at 78. But I do think that's a good contrast to the rest of our pitching staff that throws really hard. So I'm not mad about that at all. This is going to be a guy that, in a world of velo and stuff, he's going to be kind of a control artist and a weak contact guy, kind of like a Logan Webb type player, I would say. So I'm really excited about him. He's a dog. But boy, when we get down into the rest of our guys here, Mitch Denny, this is one that I was really hoping would be closer to that 90. And he ended up being an 84. It's not necessarily a miss, but it's just one of those ones I kind of got unlucky with. I really liked his pitch mix, and I liked that he was a lefty, so I kind of pushed him to the top of my draft board. 4-seam slider, 2-seam splitter, and a changeup. Splits are not bad on this game, especially as a lefty if you're throwing against righties. Throwing that splitter down and away is great, and then he's got that slider to go against left-handed hitters. So I like Mitch Denny. 84 potential, not bad at all. Definitely not a miss by any means. Just not quite. I was thinking maybe 85, 86. Just not quite where I wanted him to be. Manuel Vasquez, this guy I had such high hopes for, and he ended up being injured. He opted out of the doctor exam. I took a little bit of a gamble, and he lost 10 points on his potential. I think he was at 87 to 92, and he went down to a 77 to 82. Ends up being an 80 overall. Once again, not necessarily a miss. He's 23, though, and he's a 62 overall. It's just one of those things where it's like I would have liked him to have been healthy and been really good. Right-handed pitcher, 4-seam, cutter, slider, changeup. Nothing that really jumps off the page with him either. I think he will be a good, solid starting pitcher, but just nothing real special. Ted Arnson, I had hopes that he was going to be great. His potential was actually up, I think, around 88. And then we got the last 20% and it plummeted. Still like the pop. He is a 69 overall. So he's pretty much big league ready at 18 years old, which is cool. But his actual potential is only about a 76. So that one does kind of feel like a little bit of a letdown. Even though he's still going to perform pretty well with the pop. And then obviously his plate skills are not great, but they're not really as bad as we see a lot of the times with guys that come right out of the draft. And then, of course, the fielding at 78 is good. So there's a lot of positives here with Ted Arnson. He's just not quite the player that I was hoping he would be. It would have been sweet to get him up into the 80s as well. Kind of got unlucky there. Jamie Gosselin, once again, just bad luck. I thought this was a great choice for being late in the rounds. 77 to 88. I was thinking maybe he'd at least be into the, 84, 85 range. Ends up being an 81. Kind of on the bottom end of his ratings again. 66 overall. Not a bad pick by any means, but just not a whole lot that's really special about him. He does throw fairly firm, but not anything crazy. He's got good stamina, though, and good walks per 9, so he'll probably simulate pretty well. But once again, just not quite what I was looking for. And then, of course, Ruben Blanton was kind of a long shot, 18-year-old out of high school. I did like a lot of things with him. I loved his stamina, and then the strikeouts per nine and walks per nine. I feel like that would simulate very well. He's got his control in there, and then also pretty good break already for being 56 overall. So he still has potential to actually turn out to be kind of a sneaky good pitcher, because a lot of his per nines are in good places, especially if I'm going to be using him. So I'm not totally out on Blanton, but it's one of those things. Once again, I scouted him at 66 to 88, and then he comes in at 78, right in the middle. We didn't really get lucky with anybody being up to the higher end of their potential, but neither did any other team in baseball, and I'm going to show you guys that here pretty soon. I've never seen a worse draft class. But four-seam, sweeping curve, slider, changeup, pretty solid. Let's take a look at how the rest of the league did. We're going to start with the Oakland A's. Absolute bust here. Most unlucky pick I've ever seen in my entire life. They take Reggie Nelson, age 21. Seems like a good pick, right? Should be a relatively quick to the MLB guy, immediate impact guy. Ends up coming out at 79 potential when he got scouted at 84 to 94. He went from being basically a guaranteed ace or number 2 guy to being a number 5 or a number 4. I mean, that is a miss for the A's. I feel terrible for him. I really do. I will say, though, stamina's good and hits per nine's good. But he's a 67 overall, so it's like, how much better is he really going to get? Pretty rough. Walt Lamb, once again, down at the bottom of his ratings. Just unlucky. This was across the board. Throws hard. Stefan Fabregas, same thing, dude. 71 to 81, he comes out as 72. I mean, all these guys are at the very bottom of their rating scale. And this was league-wide. It's crazy. Now, Luther Moffett was a guy that we scouted and we liked. And here he is. Ends up being an 87. When a guy's got 96 potential, you are hoping he is into the 90s. So that, once again, kind of sucks. When you looked at Luther Moffett and you thought, man, this guy might be the guy. But this was a guy that I really liked. Ton of velo, right? 99 mile an hour four-seam, a sweeping curve at 83. That's disgusting. 91 on the slider and 84 on the changeup. He's going to be a nightmare to hit. So, and then we kind of move down the line. Once again, everybody on the bottom end of their ratings. I don't know what this pick was. This was really he's a 75? Wait. So he got drafted. His potential is lower than his overall, which is very, very strange. Now, he's a good player right now, but I don't know what on earth happened there. That's very strange. Jody Ibanez, this actually ended up being a good pick for them. It's just a long-term project, and then you can kind of see that. So the Angels did okay. They got one of the pitchers that I wanted. The winner of the draft really is probably the Houston Astros, and it's only because of this closer, Darryl Hamill. I think this was the best player in the entire draft at a 95. You will not see very many 90 potential guys coming out of this draft. It was a terrible draft class. I can't even believe it. But that plays good for us because we have a lot of young talent, especially in our pitching staff. So it wasn't the bad. It wasn't the worst thing. Kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? Like, it wasn't really good for us, but it wasn't really good for anybody else. So that's fine. But yeah, this guy, big league ready. We'll see him probably next year or the year after. Just solid overall. Doesn't give up a lot of hits. Luckily, his pitching clutch isn't very good yet. But anyway. And then other than that, the only other guy, really, Samuel Cabrera, 47 overall. He's 18. We won't see him for a long time. So some solid players, potentially, but nothing crazy for Houston. Absolute bust for the Twins. Herbert Everett ended up being unsigned. No idea about him. I think we did look at him for a second, but Scotty Duvall was a miss. You can't get a 79 potential out of your first-round pick. They just blew it on every single pick. The only other one that could be good, maybe Forrest Woodson. This was a guy that we looked at, actually. But we just didn't really need a shortstop, so it didn't make a lot of sense. But I will say he's pretty close to big league ready from Nebraska. Good defense, good speed, and good pop. Not a lot of contact, but whatever. Kansas City Royals, they had some good picks. Octavio Jimenez, once again, ends up being a bust. A 72 to 89. You're hoping he's at least in the 80s, and he's a 74 potential. That's just not good. He's just not going to get much better. Jordan Floyd, they scouted him at 94 to 99, and he comes out at an 87. Probably the most unlucky draft class I've ever seen. I mean, just absolutely terrible. Marcus Sixto, unknown because we don't know his potential. He's not signed. You hate to see it across the board. It's not good for the league when there's no talent coming in. And, the Tigers, they really needed some good picks. Terrible. And none of these are inherently bad picks, I don't think. But it's like, what are we doing here? They didn't do a good job scouting. The Guardians picked up some solid players. Once again, 78 to 90. You're hoping he's up above 85-ish. Just nothing there. Perry McFarland ends up being an 85. That's solid. Not a bad pick. Starting pitcher. But at least they didn't really have any complete busts here. But none of these guys are really going to be super impact players. But they're all pretty decent. Jason McGill, at a 59 overall, he's got 78 contact against lefties. He's going to be a problem. White Sox, terrible. Blue Jays picked up a late round flyer, relief pitcher. Everything else, not good. Not good for the Rays. One guy's good here for the Yankees, Oscar Lerma. I do remember seeing this guy. Didn't really scout him. I don't know why I didn't scout him. Maybe I didn't see him. I feel like I would have scouted him if I had seen him. Pretty good bat to ball skills. 85 to 96, comes out as a 91. That's a great pick, especially where he's at in the round. So the Yankees did a good job. Once again, Red Sox, nothing really significant. Baltimore, nothing really significant. Greg Harnett was a guy that we did like, though. Ray Fernandez, nothing. This is the Giants. Mark Woodson, this was the second baseman that we did like. Luckily, we did not pick him up because he ended up being at the very bottom of his potential. Very unfortunate. Great vision, though. So would play and perform well, but tough. Eugene Wellington, we like this guy. Comes out as an 80. Thank goodness we didn't pick him. But yeah, you can see, there's no talent. No talent in this draft class. Joseph Anderson, 80 to 95, comes out as an 86. Okay. He's a long ways out. He's a switch hitter. He's a 43 overall. He's not really going to be a significant player. I will say, the only team that did well was the Rockies. Both of these pitchers were guys that I wanted, and the Rockies took them both. They did a good job scouting. Val Palbicki was my number one pick in the draft. He had great potential, but he was also almost big league ready. And sure enough, 68 overall, 4-seam slider, curveball, 2-seam. Good pitch mix, throws real hard from Tennessee. They picked him in the first round way before I could get to him. And Fred Schroer was going to be my second round pick. They also snagged him, and he came out to be an 89. So big pitching prospects for the Rockies. Shout out to them. They did a good job. And then they got Tom Capel in the late rounds. Absolute flyer of a pick. Turns out to be a 94 potential. Now he is 55, and he's 18 years old. He's got a long ways to go, but the defense is already insane. He's going to be a Gold Glove second baseman, no doubt about it, because those are going to come up by a lot. So, good job to the Rockies. Diamondbacks, terrible. Darren Cobb, starting pitcher. This was probably the best pick in the draft, I would say, for the Cardinals. If I could have one guy from the draft, it'd probably be this guy. 73 overall, and he's 18 years old. 94 potential. They scouted him at 80 to 95, and he came out at 94. This is the best pitcher, the best pick in the draft. 4-seam, 12-6 slider and sinker. What a pick. 73 overall. 18 years old. Absolute dog. Cardinals are known for good starting pitchers. At least they were in the 2000s. That's cool. A lot of misses here for the Pirates, I guess. And once again, look at this. 86 to 91 scouted potential for Spencer McCarthy. I love this pick. That's a great pick. 22 years old. He's won maybe 2 years out of the big leagues. Ends up coming out at an 85. Once again, not bad, but it's like, man, get me like an 87, you know? Brewers did okay. Bobby Deal. This was a guy that we liked. I remember debating on whether or not to pick him. Probably should have. A lot of pop there. The contact against righties makes me a little bit nervous. I don't know how much that would really improve, but that's definitely not good. But he's got a ton of pop, so he may be real good. He's 18, a lot of time to develop. And then Manny Herrera. This is a great pick. Way down the board. 91 potential. He is 19 already and 48, so I don't know how good that pick really is, but Bobby Deal was a great first-round pick. Jackie Chavis, a guy that I wanted real bad. Thank goodness we did not get him, because, boy, I was thinking this guy's going to be in the 90s potential. He's 83 to 95. He's a great pick. Comes out as an 85. Just, in my mind, a first-rounder, that's a miss. You can see there's no talent. Xavier Eckert, this was a great pick, 18 years old. Johnny Cordova, center fielder. This was really the only good position player in the draft. Comes out at a 90 potential. A lot of pop against lefties. Great pick for the Nats. Phillies, a couple of solid players. Pedro Roca, I remember seeing him. We liked him. And then Rick Golden, never scouted him. He's a long ways out. But you can see there's no talent here. Mario Rodriguez, 41 overall. Just when's he going to play? When he's 29? I mean, he's going to be a long ways out. Isaac Martin, shortstop, pretty good pick. But 51 overall. So it's just not much there. One player was really good in this draft from the position standpoint. That was Tom Hirsch. We did scout him. He was on our board. He got snagged right away, unfortunately. I was thinking he was going to go in the second round, but because of the lack of position player depth, I think he went way, way sooner. This is a guy I kind of wanted. A lot of speed, good defense, good pop. 73 overall already. He's 18 years old. He's going to be a dog. We'll keep an eye on him moving forward. And then Tristan McKenna. This was a great pick, I feel like, except he's 22 and he's a 46 overall. He's going to need probably 6 years. You know, he's going to be 28 by the time he gets up into his potential range. So something crazy happens there. I don't know. Terrible draft by the Braves. That's okay. I did like Jack Leonard. So I'm not sure what's going on there. He's unsigned. And Jack Kretlow was also a guy that we liked. They picked him up. We don't know his potential. So terrible draft, by the way, by the Braves. Terrible draft by the Rangers. I mean, they did horrible. Ray Geronimo was a guy that I didn't mind. But boy, he ended up being not very good. And then we're back to us. So really, when you look at everybody else in the draft, there's a handful of players that were A potential. I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 players in that whole draft were a 90 potential. I think there was 2 players that were above a 94, and most of them were like 48s or 50s overall. There was no generational impact talent, especially on the position player side. So overall, this doesn't look great, what I did, but when you compare it to a lot of the other teams, we actually had a pretty good draft because the player pool was terrible. I went very starting pitcher heavy just to I was kind of having a shotgun approach. I'm like, I'm going to draft a bunch of pitchers and hope that one of these guys turns out. Matt Ray ended up being that guy. He'll be ready in a couple of years. The idea with Matt Ray is that when Luis Castillo's contract is up, he can slide in and be a number 5 starter for us potentially. We'll see what next year's draft brings for sure. There may be more talent there. I really do need an impact position player. I need a corner outfielder really, really bad. Or if there is some sort of generational shortstop, you know, J.P. Crawford's contract is going to expire here soon. So I'm really looking at that. We have a lot of shortstop talent in our minors, but none of those guys are really elite level talent, and I would love to have just a stud of a shortstop to go with Julio out in center field. Have really good superstar players at shortstop and at center field. I think that's a making of a great team. We already have an outstanding pitching staff, and we're going to continue to build on that. Now, Mitch Denny may be a guy that we see within the coming future. A 64 overall, a little bit on the low side, but he's got that B potential. He will be good and potentially be a bottom of the rotation guy. Also, Jamie Gosselin, kind of the same boat. So whichever one of these guys ends up potentially being elite and having elite stuff, we'll probably roll with. But anyway, absolute bust of a draft. Next season, I bet, is going to be a banger of a draft class, which is good because we need a lot of position player help. And we're going to need it bad in the coming years. Like, we've got a lot of guys' contracts coming up and expiring. This is one of the reasons I made that move for Ceddanne Rafaela, because I read the writing on the wall, said we have no position player talent. We need help. Now, let's talk about Ted Arnson real quick. This guy, I was really excited about the draft because I knew he was going to be big league ready, and he pretty much is, 69 overall. What will we do with him? I like the pop. He's got 20 to 30 home run pop potential. As a second baseman, it's pretty crazy. And then the defense is really good. So this is a guy maybe next season he works in a little bit with us. We'll just have to see what happens. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate it. I'll catch you on the next one. Y'all take care.